get into the latest on Jason Kidd here on today's show. There's been a lot of reporting, a lot of conflicting reports surrounding Jason Kidd and the potential that he goes to the New York Knicks. Welcome into Mavericks Today by Chat Sports. I'm Jeffrey Cooperstein. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, because if any news drops on the Mavs head coaching search, if they have one on the Mavs head coaching news surrounding Jason Kidd, we will have you covered right here. It's youtube.com/MavsTV. We're going to start with Marc Stein, who said some believe that the Knicks will ultimately not request to interview Jason Kidd for their head coaching vacancy, as they believe that it might be rebuffed by the Mavericks if they do formally request. And there's been a lot of back channeling and a lot of the Knicks and Kidd trying to see if this is a possibility. And at the end of the day, it sounds like the Knicks, maybe there's a hint of doubt that the Mavs would actually allow Kidd to interview for the position. Now, this is kind of conflicting from what Brian Windhorst has to say, who says the Knicks would absolutely like to hire Jason Kidd to be their next head coach. And when it comes to this kind of stuff, I do believe Windhorst kind of has an idea of what he's talking about. But I'll say this, if the Knicks believe and they would like to hire Jason Kidd to be their next head coach, then they absolutely do have to formally request to interview him to be the next head coach. And, that could be sort of semantics. If they formally request to interview him, that means they're basically wanting to hire him. And if the Mavericks do grant that request, Jason Kidd is all but gone to New York as the next head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. There's kind of really three outcomes that can happen here with Jason Kidd. The Mavericks could flat out deny the request and say, we're not allowing you to interview Jason Kidd. He's going to be our head coach, and we're expecting him to be in Dallas in the fall. They could ask for trade compensation from the New York Knicks in order to facilitate a deal and Kidd going to New York to be their head coach, or they could just allow him to go. And I don't think that's really an option. I don't think the Mavs are going to let Kidd walk for nothing, even if they end up letting him go to the Knicks. If Jason Kidd ends up going to New York, it's going to be a trade of sorts. And if you remember, we talked about this earlier in the week. Jason Kidd was already traded once in his coaching career from the Brooklyn Nets to the Milwaukee Bucks. It's something that, while isn't common, it does happen. Doc Rivers was traded to the Clippers. They got a first-round pick for him. I don't think the Mavericks would end up getting a first-round pick from the Knicks in order to acquire Jason Kidd's services from the Knicks, But look, I doubt they let him leave for nothing. But I'll say this as well. The longer this goes without a denial, the more possible I think it is that Jason Kidd's a flight risk and could be headed to the Big Apple. And all of this is just absolutely crazy. Like, I did not have this on my bingo card when the offseason started. Maybe I should have expected the unexpected when it comes to this franchise, because right now the Mavericks kind of look foolish the way that they are being played in the media and the way that Jason Kidd, their sitting current head coach, is being talked about like he's already on his way to New York. If I was the Mavericks right now and I'm in that front office, I either issue a strong denial saying, no, Jason Kidd is not going to be the Knicks head coach. He is our head coach and we're going to keep it that way. Or let him go to the New York Knicks, accept the request from the Knicks to interview him, and just move on with it. Sitting here in the sort of purgatory is just not okay. And look, if they do allow Jason Kidd to go to New York, which I certainly think is a possibility at this point, who would replace him? We're sitting this far deep into the offseason where we're 2 weeks away from the NBA draft. We're 2.5 weeks away from NBA free agency, and we're sitting here and the Mavericks may not have a head coach. I don't think you're going to get one of the marquee guys on the market. I think the top two replacements would be Sean Sweeney and Jared Dudley, who are both on your staff right now as assistants. It's also possible both of those guys would go to New York to be a part of Kidd's staff. I don't think you're getting Mike Malone or Taylor Jenkins to be your head coach this season. If the Mavs do end up losing Kidd to New York, the Mavs would be the only head coaching vacancy, so maybe they would have some sort of leverage there, but I just don't think Jenkins, Malone, or Tibbs are happening. I don't think any of them want to step in to the situation that the Mavericks have going on right now. I would say especially Tom Thibodeau. I think he is a very strong voice in a locker room and a front office, and the Mavericks are looking for a guy who's just going to coach the team and let the front office do their thing, which Tom Thibodeau certainly would not. Mike Malone is kind of known as sort of an asshole when it comes to coaching players and whatnot. I think the Mavericks are looking for a Jason Kidd type who is known as a player's coach and is going to be able to relate to the players. That's not Mike Malone. Taylor Jenkins could be a sort of option, but this far deep into the coaching cycle, I bet Jenkins waits at least another year to try to find the right landing spot for him. So I don't think any of those guys would happen. And if Kidd goes, I do think it would be either Sean Sweeney or Jared Dudley as the next head coach of the Dallas Mavericks. And I think that would be an absolute disaster because you just don't want it to get there. Who do you want to be the Mavericks' next head coach, though? Let me know down there in the comments section. If you want Jared Dudley, if you want Sean Sweeney, if you want someone I haven't even mentioned yet, go on down there and let me know. And I kind of alluded to this earlier. The Mavericks should just ask Jason Kidd what he wants and go from there. Nico Harrison should get Jason Kidd in a room and say, hey, do you want to be our head coach or not? If the answer is yes, the Mavericks' next move should be to go to their PR staff, draw up a statement, and say Jason Kidd is going to be our head coach and he will not be interviewing with the New York Knicks. If Jason Kidd says, yeah, I'd like to interview, I'd like to explore the possibility, you let him go and you move on. I don't think they can kind of sit in this world of the unknown, so to speak, when it comes to Jason Kidd. Marc Stein had this to say about Kidd and the Dallas Mavericks. He said he's particularly close to Mavs stars Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving, and he and his family are very settled in Dallas. And as covered in last Friday's piece where he had a lot on Jason Kidd, he said Kidd has been operating as the Mavericks spokesman on all things Cooper Flagg since they won the draft lottery on May 12th, expressing his excitement about getting the chance to coach Flagg. And he absolutely did express his excitement. He's always talked about, we are very excited about the young man from Duke, and we've been doing a lot of research on the young man from Duke because you can't officially say his name. You know, it's semantics when it comes to the NBA and all their rules and all that with tampering. But I really do change my mind with every new report that comes out. One day I think he's going to be staying. Another tells me he's going to be going. I really just don't know what to think at this point. I had said on yesterday's show it was a 55% chance Jason Kidd stays. I'd probably say it's still probably around a 50 to 55% chance he goes. But the fact that it's even close to that right now is just because of the Mavericks' lack of communication. And I just absolutely hate that about this franchise right now. You tell me down in the comments section, what do you think? What is the percent chance Jason Kidd is the head coach of the Dallas Mavericks next season? If you think it's 100, put that. If you don't think there's any way Jason Kidd returns as coach, go ahead and type 1 for me down in the comment section. I do want to talk about the Nico Harrison angle as well. If Jason Kidd walks after everything that's happened since the Doncic trade, where they have put Kidd in the firing line, they have made him the punching bag of this organization so far, given the lack of communication from Nico Harrison, from Patrick Dumont. They really kind of threw Kidd under the bus and told him to go out there and take it until Nico finally met with the media in that closed-door session on the eve of Luka's return, and then later in the exit interviews. Kidd was made the spokesman of this whole front office and the whole fiasco that ensued, and I know for a fact he did not like that, and who could blame him for not liking that? It's just a dangerous game that the Mavericks are playing right now, and I think this could be a real domino effect, and I tweeted this out a few days ago. I think if Jason Kidd goes, I think Kyrie goes, and I think he opts out and explores his options in free agency and his rehab path. If Kyrie goes, kind of think that means AD needs to be traded. And if AD is traded, Nico Harrison no longer needs to be the GM of this basketball team. Now, you could argue Nico Harrison no longer needs to be the GM of this team regardless. But you absolutely did not have to go down this path if you just didn't trade Luka. You wouldn't be having a coaching search. You wouldn't be having Cooper Flagg wouldn't be a Maverick, but you'd still have a top 3 player on the planet. You wouldn't be having all this unrest in your front office if all you did was just keep the guy. And I know I keep beating the dead horse, but it all basically comes back to that fateful night on February 1st, where the Mavericks basically created an absolute shitstorm that was completely avoidable that they didn't have to do. And my final word is going to be kind of this. If Jason Kidd goes, the Mavericks are staring down the barrel of a full-scale rebuild. And as a team who has the second most wins in the NBA in the 21st century, that is the Dallas Mavericks, by the way, only behind the San Antonio Spurs. The Mavericks have never really gone through a full-scale rebuild. Even when Dirk was in the twilight of his career, they were bad for a couple of years, but I wouldn't call it a full rebuild because they were really bad, and then they ended up drafting Luka, and they were pretty good right away. Mavs have never gone through a 4 or 5 year rebuild. It's been a 2-year thing at basically max. And this, if Kidd leaves, I think could be the start of a major, major rebuild in Dallas. From the head coach to the GM, other front office, the roster, it could all get very interesting. But I will say this. There are worse players to rebuild with than Cooper Flagg. Flagg can do it all. We know about his acumen. We know about his potential to be one of the very best players in the NBA right now. And if a rebuild happens, you could do a lot worse than drafting Cooper Flagg number 1 overall, which by all accounts, it sounds like the Mavericks are going to do, given they're not going to work out any other prospects, and Flagg isn't going to take any other visits. So that's going to do it for today's show, guys. Appreciate you for tuning in to Mavericks Today by Chat Sports. I can't believe we're here still talking about Jason Kidd potentially leaving the Dallas Mavericks. But of course, if he does, if anything drops surrounding this saga right here, we will have you covered right here on the channel. So hit that sub button, and we'll see you guys soon. Good stuff. Appreciate you.